an FIT student hanging out at Studio 54. Uh, I had a godfather who owned a men's clothing store at that time, and it was a very upscale men's clothing store on the Upper West Side. It was called Le Mans. So he and his partner were very well connected in the social scenes of New York. So we went everywhere. So they would take me to Studio 54 quite often. So the fashion that I remember most is I used to wear a lot of skimpy little short dresses. I wore super, super high heels. Uh, I would see Grace Jones up in the balcony, Michael Jackson, Halston on this side, Andy Warhol on that side. So the fashion was varied, but it was very sexy back then. That's really what I remember most. Party dresses and high heels.
So that makes a lot of sense, Iveta, because that was back to our disco time, our disco eras.
Mhm.
And a lot of our designers and our retails did have to meet the needs because music, disco music was so popular at that time that we did, like you're saying, people were at Studio 54 and we had to have clothing that made sense. And we do see the trend of tightness. A lot of clothing became a lot tighter and it became very universal. So, Sir Luke, what do you think about when you think about the fashion of the 70s?
Well, when I think about the fashion of the 70s, however, I was born in 79. So I'm like, I was, I don't know, I don't have any I don't really don't have any personal experience of living through it, but I wish that I did because, I was literally watching, um, I don't know if it was Netflix or it was Netflix or something, maybe on Amazon Prime. It was about Studio 54, and it was absolutely amazing. And I was like, I wish that I was born back then. Like instead of 79, I wish I was born maybe in the 60s so I can grow up in the 70s, because it was just such a free spirited time, and the fashion was absolutely to die for. So as you know, when I was at FIT, I did study fashion history and things of that nature. I studied the 70s, the fashion of the 70s, and I thought it's one of my favorite, um, I would say, fashion seasons.
Hmm.
That fashion generation, that whole 70s generation. I loved the fashion. It was the furs, the fox furs, the plush furs, and the bell bottoms, and the platform heels, which they call the Cuban heel for men. And then the women, like Yvette said, would wear these high end 6-inch stilettos and 5-inch stilettos, and it was just absolutely amazing. They had a lot of glitter, and there was a lot of sequence, and it was just wonderful. So it's one of my favorite eras. I love the 70s. And if you know anything about fashion, fashion is revolutionary, not evolutionary. So
Hmm.
it just revolves back around again. And I felt as if I was kind of lived it a little bit, especially being, in New York when I was doing my club days, like around in the, when I like, what was it, like 10 years ago, that look was in. Yves Saint Laurent came back, and Jay Lindenberg came back with the male bell bottoms, dress pants, and Yves Saint Laurent did a whole collection of Johnny boots. They're called the Johnny boots, which is boots with the Cuban heel on it. And then even some of them are still around now, like Rick Owens is doing it now, as well as Christian Louboutin and Bally and um, a few other designers are keeping that Cuban heel look. And so now, especially in Atlanta, I see a lot of, and I still wear mine. I see a lot of people out in the streets wearing, skinny jeans with the Cuban heel type boot. But I love that era, and it speaks volumes to fashion, and I think that's when fashion was at its best.
Uh-huh. And you're hitting on some really important points, Sir Luke, because that period was really about freedom. So you notice that the younger audience really had a lot of influence over that particular area. It was all about freedom, freedom in their music. They were wearing tie dyes. If you remember those tie
Yeah,
dye
yeah.
outfits that everybody was wearing, and it was about freedom. Women started wearing pants, and they were wearing little mini skirts and flowy clothing and bell bottoms. And so it was really all about that spirit of freedom. So that is an important point that you're hitting on when you talk about the 70s, Sir Luke, as well as you, Yvette. All right, so let's move on to the 80s. So we know that the 70s had it going on, the music, and if I like any, I think my favorite music of all music right now is music of the 70s. So it's etched in
Uh-huh.
my history in my mind.
Uh-huh.
So let's move to the 80s. When we look to the 80s, we saw a lot of bright colors. We saw a lot of crazy patterns. At that point, the economy was thriving. We were coming back. The country was coming back from a depression, and so sort of similar to what we saw after the pandemic happened. After the pandemic happened, it's like you're saying, it's repeating again. Everybody wanted to get out. Everybody wanted to wear color. Everybody wanted to do all of those things that they hadn't had an opportunity to do before. And so designer brands like Versace and Guess and Tommy Hilfiger became very popular in the 80s. So it was about the grunge and those ripped jeans. And also what we saw in the, well, no, yeah, so it was thriving. Okay. So what are your thoughts? What do you think of when you think of the 80s? I kind of mixed up the 80s and the 90s. So what do you think about?
Mhm.
Let's go back to the 80s. That
Me,
was like the 80s and the 90s. So what do you think about
okay.
the 80s? We'll put them together. The 80s and then moving into the 90s.
I remember a lot of neon, really, really bright colors. And I remember color blocking. Like everything was okay, this panel that. Those are the most vivid memories of what I saw on the street and what people were wearing. But definitely neons and color blocking were like strong.
And that makes sense because people were trying to really get rid of those sad and depressed feelings from struggling through the depression and really wanted to, um, you know, um, approach life and be perceived as more brighter and more colorful. So, Luke, thoughts on the 80s?
The 80s, for me,
So, you were one.
I think that was so. I was born in '79, so
You were one.
but the '80s was all about like you said, color blocking and definitely bright colors. You got fuchsia, you got neon, you got turquoise, you got all these bright colors. Also, the fit of the clothing were a little different. You know, they wore more of loose fitting clothing. They experienced with tie-dye. They experienced with ripped jeans. They experienced with not so much like the '70s a high heel, but more with sneakers, more with the low. Women were. I guess that's when like the whole SWV rap, TLC type genre of music that came out and stuff like that. So it was funny because fashion really changed. They also, speaking of Harlem, I think Harlem adapted to it more, um, where we wore the fitteds, the hats, kind of like this, right? And they
Mhm.
Hmm.
wore it to the side, they wore it to the back,
Yeah.
So which was kind of neat. Actually, I wore that hat to that, but that was a cool era for me. Um, I was in school then, and definitely loose fitting clothing was in. Different sneaker trends were in. I would say that's when the urban fashion really came to light around
That's
that
right.
time.
Those are the 90s. So, yes, we're rolling into the
Oh, that's
90s.
that's the '90s. But the '90s,
Yes,
yeah.
Hmm.
that's
So that was the '80s, and that's the
exactly.
'90s was when the urban,
Yes,
yeah, the
yes.
urban,
Explosion, that urban
yeah.
explosion where all of our
But the
big
'80s
urban
kind
brands.
of, the '80s kind of, you know, directed it that way, kind of. You know what I
Yes,
mean?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Hmm.
So.
Yeah, so you hit on that. So when we moved to the 90s, we saw the big brands like Versace and Guess and Tommy Hilfiger, but we also saw the power of our own urban brands. And we
Yeah.
saw brands like Fubu, Cross Colors, all of those came to light in the 90s. Carl Kanai, Sean John, and we realized that those urban
Fuji.
brands could sell, yes, could sell 5, 6, 700 million dollars worth of product in a year. And so it was driven by what? Hip hop. So what are your thoughts on the 90s and the explosion of those urban brands?
It was wonderful because it was a chance for us to make money for a change for fabulous things that we've been designing forever. Uh, and the 90s for me were a little bit different. It's when I focused more on just in personally, like acquiring designer purses and designer this and that. Like I became Fendi obsessed. You know, that's what the 90s meant to me. That's why I have a closet full of purses now. But that was the time when I got really super interested in that in those luxury brands. And also it depends on the age group that I'm in, because I was a little too old to indulge in the whole urban gear.
Hmm.
but but the luxury brands are what caught my attention at that point in time.
Yes. What about you, Sir Luke? What about the 90s? So it was a combination of both of those big designer
Mm-hmm.
brands
Mm-hmm.
and these urban brands starting
Mm-hmm.
to
Mm-hmm.
show that they had some viability in this market, all driven by the popularity of hip hop. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's when I became interested in like Versace and being in New York, between New York and New Jersey, that's when I literally started to become more familiar with urban brands, with designers of our own people. Um, Carl, like Coogee, and what you said, like Carl Canale and things of that nature, and Tommy Hilfiger and all them. Um, which is so funny about Tommy Hilfiger because I'm actually friends with the Hilfiger family, and it's funny. I don't know if you know Tommy's story, and it's going into the '90s. Going talking about the '90s is he Tommy never really knew how to design, and he never went to fashion school really, and he was in Long Island, and his family were going through a hard time financially and things, and his wife was just like, okay, you better go out there and do something to feed these kids and to feed us and to keep up our lifestyle. So how he really got started, and a lot of people don't know this. And when I've sat with him and talked about this, and I'm friends with Allie, his daughter, and Jamie Hilfiger, his niece, and stuff like that. And it's funny how his how he started this. He went to the garment district, and that's when the garment district also was booming. You can go to the garment district and literally could buy anything wholesale and things of that nature. But he bought a plethora of jeans. Okay, and also went went to a company, a manufacturing company, and got his label. Where they printed his label, Tommy Hilfiger, with the American flag, and he sewed the label in the back of these jeans that he bought wholesale and sold them out of the back of his trunk, and that's how he became Tommy Hilfiger. Isn't that crazy?
Mm,
Wow.
that is. That is.
So it's an interesting story, and like look at him now. But
Mhm.
it was a great era, and I love the fact, like Yvette said, like you know, I think it was an era for our people to make to for us to get some attention and for us to make millions of dollars in our businesses that we work so hard for, and um, for us to make money and for our designs and our trends to be looked at and heard. You know what I'm saying? So
Yes.
I think that was a great time for us, especially Harlem.
Yes, I agree. I agree. I don't think that we really realized the value of our market until those big brands got out there, partnered with the hip hop, and just exploded. So I think we did learn a lot about our our place in this market right there during the 90s. So then we move on to the 2000s. So when we get to the 2000s, we're talking fast fashion now. We got a new whole economy. It's all about Zara and H&M and M and Forever 21, and those are the big influencers that we think about when we think about the 2000s. And also online marketing um, finds its place in the marketplace as well. Thoughts on the 2000s?
Fast fashion, I have mixed feelings about it. I I
Mm-hmm.
I think it has created a group of young people who will not understand what a quality garment is.
Mm.
And
Mm-hmm.
will never really understand how perhaps you should pay a little more for something that will last more than a season or two washings in the machine. So, I, like I said, I have mixed feelings about fast fashion. It's cute to knock off, the stuff and get it out there quickly and sell it inexpensively, but I think that it's so important for people to understand the difference in what that is and what a really good quality garment is.
I agree, Yvetta. Sir Luke, your thoughts on fast fashion?
So I agree, kind of. I do agree with Yvette. That was a time when H&M um, came to light, Zara, all of that, and I remember when H&M first opened their first store in New York, and we were like, "What is this? What is?" And I I think that's in that 2000s is when we paid more attention to the European look, started paying more attention to the European look, European fashion. I wouldn't say garments because, like Yvette said, um, everybody wanted to. So it also was a time where certain um, designers from Europe, designers here in the United States, uh, started copying um, like new designers started copying the A-list designers. They
Mm-hmm.
started copying, making garments that look like different fabric, but it looked like Versace. It looked
Mm-hmm.
like Yves Saint Laurent. It looked like you know Givenchy. Um, but in an affordable, they take the same, almost like a Steve Madden type thing. You know what I mean? How Steve Madden like copies all of these shoes of designers and
Yeah.
make it affordable to. So I think that's the era that I don't really care for it because I love high fashion. I also love, like Yvette said, like I love saving up money, okay, to buy one couture piece knowing that it was going to last, and
Absolutely.
then and then buying other pieces around that couture piece. That's when you buy your jeans and your other inexpensive accessories, and to where it tells a story on your body. um but yeah, the 2000s is when that they look more towards like Germany, Amsterdam, Paris, you know because Paris already, Europe already had those type of stores and that whole type of look
Mm-hmm.
where they were biting off high-end designers for a while, and I think it just trickled down to America, to the United States, and then that's when we started doing it, and we're like, okay, well, why invest in Givenchy and Versace and Gucci and this when I can go to Zara, H&M and get something just like it, but knowing it's only going to last for about, you're going to get two wears out of it because it's going to definitely fall apart in the washing
Yeah.
machine. Okay, whether you use wool light or not wool or non wool light, whether you use wool light or Tide, it's still gonna fall apart. But I mean, it was good for us young people, first, who were in college and or coming out of college, or that generation of young people, because you know they can go to the club and look like $1 million, you know, by knowing that they're only going to wear this one time.
Mm-hmm.
So, but it's not my favorite season, the '70s, but um, I mean that's what 2000 give me.
Yeah.
Exactly. So what we've seen from going from era to era, you want to add something to that, Iveta?
No, I just totally agree with him. It's not my favorite thing. And I just wish that young people would understand that, you got to have some good pieces. Like you
Right.
said, you're mixing other, but some things have to be good.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Hmm.
So what we've seen going from the 70s to the 2000s is that fashion is what's going to tell the story of a people during a particular capsule in time, and it speaks to the culture of that particular moment. So I think you all have captured that beautifully. So let's talk about Harlem a little bit, because we're Harlem, kind of Harlem based. It's Harlem Week. Our audience is not just Harlem, our audience is worldwide, but everybody does still have a respect and a fascination for Harlem, because Harlem has always been known for its organic fashion sense and style. And people have always, whether they've given Harlem credit or not, they've looked to Harlem to see what's hot, what's happening, what are the people on the street wearing in Harlem, because we have an organic sense of style and fashion. How do you think that Harlem's culture has influenced the fashion industry? Yvetta?
Well, I always say that, the hottest trends start on the streets of Harlem and they kind of translate to the rest of the world
Mhm.
afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that we have so much talent in Harlem and coming out of Harlem, and we're making a huge impact on the world. Uh, my personal experience recently, I actually just got back from England, from London, and I was invited to the Royal Ascot races and to participate in Royal Ascot Millinery Collective. So
Awesome.
basically, yeah, they choose 12 milliners, 12 hat designers from all over the world, only 12.
Mm.
And I am the only American that was invited this year and the first black milliner in history.
From
Wow.
Harlem,
Congrats.
Yeah. So
representing Harlem.
I always feel like I'm an ambassador for Harlem because when I first had to ship my hat to England, they said you have to name your hat, you have to write a story about your hat, and my story was all about Harlem and music and our special relationship with hats, and I named my hat the Blue Note.
Oh, I love it.
Mhm.
So it was interesting that they are trying to be more inclusive because this was so major. When I got there, I met Daniel Fletcher, who was the creative director. You guys may remember him from Next in Fashion. Um, but it was so completely new to them to have a designer, a milliner of color involved. And I have joined the ranks of Stephen Jones and Philip Tracy and A1 Golding. I mean, the catalog was amazing. I'm on the page with Stephen Jones, whom I know him actually. So when I arrived and the marketing people take me to the VIP suite, Stephen Jones is the first person I see getting interviewed. So the experience was a lot of press. I was officially an ambassador for Harlem, not just a milliner. And it was a great experience. And the icing on the cake was in the VIP suite, I looked around and I saw a woman wearing my hat. And I was a little surprised by that because it's like a curated, almost museum kind of thing where my hat is going to go into. And I asked the marketing person who was that woman because she was in and out very quickly. Who was that with my hat on? And she says, "Oh, she's a very important person here. She's the trustee of Royal Ascot." I'm like, "Really?" She said, "That's Lady Selena Carter." And come to find out, Lady Selena Carter is a person who greets the king and queen when they arrive in the horse and carriage. And she greeted them in my hat.
Oh,
Awesome.
wow.
Wow.
That was totally
Wow. Very,
unexpected.
very impressive.
So, and New
Yeah. So
York
Harlem is
Magazine
everywhere
summed it
now.
up. Yeah, New York Magazine did an article
Yes.
about the whole thing, and they said Harlem Milliner takes Harlem style to the Royals.
I love it. I love
Oh,
it.
I love it. I love it, Ivana. Yes. Pastor Luke,
um,
any thoughts
Harlem.
on that? Just the influence of
Well,
Harlem
let me tell you,
on the
Yvette.
culture.
Congratulations, Yvette. That's
Thank you.
you always loved
That's
seeing your
amazing. That's amazing.
as a creative. You always love to see your work being appreciated, and especially when it goes internationally. So congratulations to that.
Yeah.
But even like I mean, Yvette really summed it up by telling her story in a nutshell. Harlem
Hmm.
is everyone looks to Harlem for fashion. Everyone, you can walk down 125th Street, you walk down Frederick Douglass, you walk down. all these streets, and just you just see culture. You'll see, but not just Harlem is made up of um, black culture, African culture, things of that nature. So just to see, um, we're trendsetters to where we are. I believe we started, Harlem started the mixing of fabrics that the whole world is now adapting to, mixing color,
Mhm.
mixing patterns,
Dan,
mixing
Dapper
fabrics.
Dan.
You know what I'm saying? Like Dapper Dan. Look at Dapper Dan right now. Like he
Mhm. Mhm.
mixing Gucci with this and that and the third. And we are trendsetters. Harlem is a trend setting place. Harlem is all about trend setting. Harlem is all about taking risks when it comes to fabrics, when it comes to um, material, when it comes to patterns, mixing plaid with stripes and checkers and this and that, but also making it tell a story to where now the world is looking like, wow, who knew? You know, who knew you
That's
can mix
right.
plaid? Who
That's
knew you can
right.
mix plaid with stripes? And who knew you can wear this color with that color? You know what I
Yes.
mean?
Yes.
Like the other day, I wore a pinstripe suit and a plaid tie, like, and it was fabulous. It was Tom
Yeah.
Ford, but it was fabulous. And people were like, hmm. But it's funny because growing up, that was the no-no. People were like, what are you wearing? That does not match.
Absolutely.
Everything had to
Absolutely.
match. And
Yeah.
Harlem is all about not matching, not being that trendsetter, stepping out of the box,
Yes. Fearless.
and to where
Fearless.
people, to where the world, and Japardan is a an example of that, to where the world is now, and high fashion is now looking at, like, let's see what comes out of Harlem. Let's see what
Mhm.
comes out of, in Africa, and Harlem also represents Africa and things of that nature. When I studied different patterns of Louis Vuitton and Gucci and this and all these high, a lot of that came from Africa, and I was just like, wow, interesting. That Harlem already knew about and been doing it for years, and now it's
Mhm.
like now we're getting recognition about it. So it's exciting. You know what I mean?
It
Oh,
is.
Yeah.
It is. Ivana, do you want to add anything else to that?
I just totally agree with Sir Luke. I mean, we've got it all. The talent is right here,
It is. I
and the
agree.
and the world knows it. And
Hmm.
the mere fact that I was invited into this old British institution, I,
Yes.
I couldn't even believe I was there myself. Even Stephen Jones, when he saw me, he said, "Avetta, I can't believe you're here."
That's amazing. So now we talked about Harlem, and we know that Harlem has had an influence on the industry, and we know the industry in general. It's a very lucrative $1 trillion business. Nevertheless, it has experienced a lot of challenges. The closure of big retail chains, the closure of boutiques, the closure of small businesses. What are some of the things that you believe are affecting the industry that are causing some of these challenges in such a what was such a lucrative industry? Sir Lou?
um, I think it's the economy. I think it's what with the times in which we're living in right now. I remember when Barney's closed. Barney's is one of my favorite department stores, and that closed, and then Jeffrey's closed, and I was just like, oh my God, what's happening?
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know, I'm happy to see a lot of my favorite designers still making it, is still trying. Um, I was scared for I'm a good friend of Zach Posen's, and Zach, I've known Zach for years, and Zach lives in kind of between Chinatown and Soho, and his that's where his offices were, and he had to close that and file some type of bankruptcy. But now he's still around and still relevant, um, and still trying right now, still trying to bring his whole um, name back up to where it was before. And it's hard, it's challenging.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think it's the economy in which we're living in. I mean, it's I don't like to get political, but based on the decisions of presidents and the government and Congress and our state representatives and all that. It's just it and also what's going on with the world. I mean, we all know right now it's a recession. It's also inflation, and how it affected the fashion industry is that they have to. Some of them have to use. They have to bring their prices down. They have to bring. They can't charge. What they've been charging for a garment. Um, and use less, less fabrics, use a cheaper fabric. So a lot of designers are not making, um, because of that, it's them have to make basically what you call affordable clothing to keep their business going. Now, these high end designers where Iveta and you, Dr. Deborah, and myself and others would, you know, invest in those couture pieces and you know they're not making so much couture unless they're not making really anything couture unless you're a client and you want them to make you want them to make you something for a wedding or for the special occasion. But just to go into stores and find those couture pieces, you can't. They're not really making that anymore. Because they have to come down on their prices because of because of the what's happening in the world, because because of inflation, because of recession, and to keep their business going. You can't, they can't charge $5,000 for, like this jacket I have on. This is a Bergdorf collection, okay, and you can. This is sold at Bergdorf's, and I remember having this a whole sweatsuit, right? Bergdorf Goodman sweatsuit with the Bergdorf Goodman hat, and just the sweatsuit alone used to be 2,000, and now this jacket is only 250, and
Wow.
the pants is only 300. So where it was like the whole set used to be like over 2,000.
Wow.
Mhm.
But also I noticed that the quality has changed. You're using lesser fabric, cheaper fabrics. Not so, I'm glad that I have those pieces in my closet. But if I were to take this, show you this, and then show you a Bergdorf piece, where it's like the same sweatsuit, you'll see if if I was in front of you, you can feel the difference with fabric. You know what I mean? So it's unfortunate, but hopefully it's going to get better, and hopefully that we'll get back to a better economy to where they can start making like some key couture pieces rather than just do it for celebrities who's going to walk the red carpet, or celebrities who's going to walk the red carpet at the Golden Globes or Oscars as well as the Met Gala.
Mhm. So, what about online, the business of people shopping online now with Amazon and not having to go into the stores and being able to get
I
things
hate it.
cheaper? I mean,
I
what
hate
do you
it.
think what do what's your
I
take on that?
hate it. I hate online shopping. I know a lot of people out there. I know all of you out there love online shopping. Now if I lived in West Virginia, okay, if I lived in Utah, Kansas, okay, yes, but I can't get with it. I mean, even in Atlanta, I'm in Atlanta, and I'm so there's. I don't know if you're familiar with Atlanta, but Atlanta has all these high end stores. Like, I mean, but it's just I don't know. I don't like it because it takes the joy out of shopping.
But
Like,
it's a
it
huge
takes.
business. It's a huge
It's a
business,
huge. It's $1 billion business. It's
and
just for me.
it has had an impact on retail.
Yes,
Do you not agree?
during the pandemic time, we were all about it, right? And I'm all
Mhm.
about it. But also, I mean, it's it's taking jobs away from people. People that I know that have been in the fashion industry for 20 years, 15 plus years, whatever. Um, you know, are is just they're losing their jobs because of online shopping. People are not shopping in retail stores anymore like they used to.
Mhm.
And that's the joy of shopping. That's the joy of going and searching and hunting for that piece that you like or that piece that speaks to you. you know, and on
Mhm.
top of that, you can feel the fabric. It's tangible. You can touch it. You can smell it. You can put it against your skin and see how it feels rather than just be like, well, I think that's cotton, but it might be those two sisters. It might be Polly and Esther, but I think it's cotton, but I'm just going to buy it anyway. And if I don't like it, I'm just going to send it back. It's like,
In the back. That's right.
you
Do you
know, but
agree, Yvetta?
it takes the joy, it
Yeah.
takes the
Oh,
joy out of
yeah.
shopping. It takes the joy out of like,
Online shopping, especially I'm in the hat business, and you really
yeah,
need to try on a hat. It's an
right.
experience. And my clients, they go to the Kentucky Derby, they go to the Conservancy Luncheon for Central Park, they go to these big hat required events, and the hat has to really be dramatic, make a statement. You can't tell online how something like that is going to work for you. So, online shopping has hurt. The pandemic gave me the biggest hit, really, because it stopped a lot of my clients from being social. You
Right.
know,
Mhm.
yeah. I mean, of course, I have a lot of older clients as well as young clients, but the older ones, a lot of them don't even go to church anymore. They have church on Zoom,
Mhm.
and they don't
Oh
need new
yes.
hats for church anymore.
Right.
So I mean, if I don't have as many church customers anymore, and I'm relying on my social ladies, so now I have to focus on the sorority sisters because they're very social and they always have some kind of luncheon
Hmm.
or tea. So I really have to seek out other groups that are,
Hmm.
because a lot of the older ones, they're not going to events anymore.
Mhm.
It's
Yeah.
I took a huge hit with the pandemic.
I mean, you're right, Yvette. Like the
Mhm.
pandemic, and it's unfortunate, but the pandemic really just we, even though it exists, but it's not that hard era of quarantine and all that. Like it's over. But I think we're just stuck there. Like I feel as if we're just stuck there because as far as like the way we shop, we don't go out to eat as often. We don't um like Yvette said, we're not social. Some of us are not, but everyone is taking a hit, especially the fashion industry, like especially stores. Like when was it? It was either last year or the year before. Neiman Marcus laid off 500 people across the board, and I've watched um, people who have been there for 25 years, 23 years get terminated or get laid off after putting in all those years because people are not shopping like they used to because everything is just online.
Mhm.
So I'm all for everyone just getting out their house and going. I appreciate those who get out their house and still have that old school mentality of I'm going to the store because I need a dress. I'm going to the store because I need Yvette's hat. I'm going to the store because I might run into Sir Luke. I'm going to the store. You know what I mean? It's like I appreciate clients still coming out, being affiliated with Bergdorf Neiman's, Saks Fifth Avenue. I'm there a lot. I do a lot of personal shopping there and a lot of events there. And it's just, I appreciate those who come out and still shop and be like, I'm going to dinner tonight. So Luke, you think you can find me a shoe to match my dress? You know what I mean? Or I'm coming from work. I need something to put on because I'm going out with the girls. Like I appreciate rather than just be like, oh, I have an event in 2 weeks, and I know I'm going out with the girls in 2 weeks. Let me go online and see what I can find.
Mhm.
And then you know, shopping online is very cheap. It's
Yeah.
inexpensive.
It's
It's
cheaper.
like
Yeah.
the new H&M and Zara.
Mhm.
You don't know what you're getting. Everything is $29.99, and
Yeah.
it's like it looks good, but you're only gonna get one wear out of it.
That's right. But we
But
are. They know that when they buy it, they have
so
realistic expectations about that.
but I mean, it's even going down to like I have a neighbor. I was with her yesterday, and um, I went down to her house. I actually cooked for them because I love cooking, but I cooked for her and her partner. And then she got a knock at the door, and it was a delivery, and got all these food like. You don't even go to the supermarket. You getting food delivery. Like what? Yeah,
Right.
online is great. All I'm like, you are killing this. You are killing this industry. There's people like you. You know what? I'm going upstairs. I'm not cooking for y'all. But I mean, we have to get out there, like
Yeah.
people, and
Mhm.
I love that when I go back to Harlem because I'm in New York once a month. I'm in Atlanta, everybody. I'm in Atlanta, hot Atlanta. It's hot as hell. But I when I do go back to New York at least once a month, sometimes twice a month, Harlem's the first place I go, and Harlem is where I stay at. And I love seeing our people out there still whining and dining, Red
Mhm.
Rooster, this one, that one. I'm so happy to see Sylvia still going on.
Mhm.
You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying?
Mhm.
And like, and everyone's still out there eating outside, still, and the block parties, honey, that's been going on
Yeah.
definitely
Yeah.
around like pride and stuff like. But I'm just like, I love it, and I'm like, so maybe we can be, and I know I'm talking a lot, but maybe that's a trend that the world could look at us and bring back to fruition. Hey, get outside, go start
Mhm.
shopping again, start
Mhm.
walking those streets, start going to the flea market, start seeing what's out there.
Mhm.
Be social. You know, I love. I mean, just like I love like, well, I'm like, man, I need something new to wear. Like, like I feel like going out this weekend. I need something new to wear, and then
Mhm.
going and walking just to buy something new to wear tomorrow. You know what I mean?
Mhm. Mhm.
Yes. Yes.
So whether it be vintage or whether it be new,
Yeah.
Just go out
So
and look for
I
it. Go
think
out
it's
and
gonna get better. I think it's gonna get better. I have
It's
faith in it.
gonna get better. I
it's
mean,
gonna change.
yeah, I even do pop-ups all everywhere.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I say people need to know I've had this store in Harlem for 35 years and I still hear people say, "Well, I never heard of your store." I'm like, "Do you know how many Vogue editorials I've had, even a cover?"
Right.
And you
Right.
live across the street and you never come in the shop.
Right.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah.
But I do pop-ups everywhere. I do the Grand Bazaar once a month, 77th and Columbus, just to get a whole group of new customers, and then they come to the shop afterwards.
Right.
Mhm.
So I get out there with my hats and just,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, introduce myself.
Right.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
So speaking of how we move ourselves forward in this industry, one of the things that we hear a lot about is AI. So a lot of us don't even know what AI is. AI stands for artificial intelligence, but most of us still don't know what that is and what that means. So basically, what it means is that we're using technology to simulate human intelligence using machines, especially computers. So the simple description of it is that we're teaching machines to think like humans, to think
Mhm.
for themselves like humans. So it allows us to take huge amounts of data, analyze the data, look at the patterns in those data, use these patterns to make all types of predictions for the future. And it's poised to be a game changer in the fashion industry in terms
Mhm.
of the supply chain and how that supply chain moves, in terms of how we market and how we design. I don't know if you all saw those fabulous pictures of Beyonce and Rihanna after the Met Gala. Well, neither Beyonce nor Rihanna were at the Met Gala. But if you didn't know that, you would not really be able to discern whether they were or not. They were fabulous. So artificial intelligence took Beyonce and Rihanna, the theme from the Met Gala, and created fabulousness that everybody was saying, oh my gosh, Beyonce, you win the Met Gala. Rihanna, you win the Met Gala. And they were both at home in their pajamas. So that's what we're dealing with now with AI. So
Mhm.
it's a
Mhm.
blessing and a curse. What are your thoughts on that?
I use it in marketing. I mean, basically when I'm putting together an ad or something I want to feature, like I use like the tools, editing tools, like to change the background. If I have taken a photo of a hat, but I want this hat to be like laying on the beach or something like that, or poolside, like I've learned to just use it as an editing tool, just
Mhm.
in marketing so far.
Right.
But I'm learning it bit by bit, but so far that's how I use AI. And
Exactly. So,
sometimes I'll use it when I want to create text. just to give me a better description of something.
Yes. And
Mhm.
in terms of that marketing, you can also use it to analyze data to determine what is the best. And it'll tell you what the best marketing strategies are. It'll help you to target repeat customers, to find new customers, to maximize the impact of your advertising that you're doing. So it could save you a lot of time and it save you a lot of money, and then help you basically get ahead of the competition and ahead of the trends that are coming up. So yeah, you can use it in marketing quite effectively. Sir Lou?
What Dr. Deborah just said um, is what we should use it for.
Mm-hmm.
What I do not like is when we go overboard.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Artificial intelligence is a wonderful thing. It's great. It's where it's helping with our economy. It's helping with our businesses, and it's the direction in which we're going. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? As we from generation to generation, we're going to continue to move forward and get new ideas and winning inventions and things of that nature. But however, here's the caveat: when it starts to take over our lives, to where, yes, like Dr. Deborah said, Beyonce and Rihanna weren't there, but they were at home in their pajamas. That I Stuff like that I don't like.
Mm-hmm.
I
I
don't,
don't either.
because it's getting back to just it's it's like at home online shopping for me. Um, it keeps us from being social.
Mm-hmm.
And when artificial intelligence keeps us from being social and keeps us and starts ruling our lives, so now we don't have to be social, we don't have to show up at events, we don't have to show up at charity events, we don't have to do this, we don't have to do that, we don't have to, and it just keeps us, we use it for laziness and to keep us in the house and not outdoors. I don't agree with it. So it's like, I like it, I appreciate it, it's wonderful, but we have to, if we give it too much power, it's going to rule us.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
And
A
that's the
machine, a
scary part
machine, and
about it.
a machine and a robot is not going to continue to think for me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna tell it what to do. It's not
Mm-hmm.
going to tell me what to do. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean?
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna learn from I'm gonna learn from the data, but you're not going. I'm not going to. It's not going to eventually rule my entire life.
No.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And take jobs from American people. Take jobs
Right.
away from American people. No.
Right.
So that's the way I feel about it. I mean, everything must be like the Bible says. Everything must be done in decency and in order. You
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
know,
I
you got to
agree.
learn balance with everything.
I agree.
Okay, this is as far as artificial intelligence is going to go. This is as far as we're going to take it. Even though we can take it further, let's not make it accessible yet.
Mhm. Yeah. We have to still rein it in at
Right,
least as much as we can. And we have to make sure that it doesn't get rid of all of our creativity, because we didn't
right,
really have to, because it'll go and create everything and we don't have to
right,
create anything.
Mhm.
And then
right,
when we do that, are we going to then become cookie cutter in terms of how
right,
things are produced and manufactured? And are we going to lose the quality that you talk about
right.
earlier?
Prime example, Dr. Deborah.
Mhm.
I was at the Alexander. I love Alexander McQueen. He's one of my favorite designers. But I was at the Alexander McQueen show in Paris. I think it was Paris or London. One of them. It was back in the day when the lady was in a white dress, standing like this, and the
Mhm.
machine just. I don't know if you saw that. Spray
Mhm.
painted the whole dress and made.
Saw that. Yes.
That was like, oh my god, this is fabulous. Okay, but then another designer started doing it. Then another designer started doing it. It was like, okay, you're not create. It's like, okay, enough. It's
You
like,
lost the
you
creativity.
know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Like, don't
Mhm.
lose your creativity. Now you
Mhm.
come out as a designer and
Mhm.
get some paint and do that and do, you know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
And I appreciate that, but not a machine shouldn't do. It's fabulous and it's a sight to see and it's great, but it's good to know that it can do that,
Mhm.
but it shouldn't take over our lives. And I don't want to wear stuff and that they're gonna call couture that a robot made.
No, I agree. We have to make sure that we keep our creativity and also that there's diversity in it. I mean, to me, you can't replicate what we're talking about earlier about what we see in Harlem. It's organic. We just know these things. There's no formula per se that's going to tell you what we're going to think in advance. So, is it going to be cookie cutter, or is it going to allow for diversity and creativity? And so, just as you both are saying so eloquently, we need to make sure that if we're going to have it, there's a lot of upside to it. And it clearly is going to be a game changer in the fashion industry. And those who want to survive in the fashion industry are going to have to understand it and learn it and figure out how to use it to grow their businesses, because it is going to help you on the design side of your business. It is going to help you on the marketing side. It is going to help you on the supply chain and how things are moving and when it's moving and getting in front of that whole supply chain. And so it is going to be, I think, difficult to be successful and not understand it and use it in some ways that will benefit you and grow your brand or grow your company. So with that, we'll close with that. And we move into the future and AI and all those other wonderful things that have both advantages and challenges. This has been a fascinating conversation with our guests, Sir Luke Destin and Yvette Petty from Harlem's Heaven. I am so wonderfully pleased and happy that you all joined us today. On behalf of the Greater Harlem Chamber of Commerce, its president and CEO, Lloyd Williams, we thank you for sharing your immeasurable talent and your valuable time with us. And for all of you that are out there watching today from around the world, we're here in Harlem, and we thank you for watching us and enjoying our guests today. And we hope that you were inspired by what these amazing and inspiring guests had to share with you today. I'm Dr. Deborah Williams. I'm happy to have been your moderator today, and have a good night.